forever. My name is Jay. This is a Ficus forest. What I got here is a couple of Ficus benjaminas. I've got a couple of other trees in here. I think that this is a privet. And this guy right here is a sarissa or a snow rose. And this is also a snow rose right here. Little bitty guys. They'll go into the concept eventually. And then of course I've got some moss and some weeds. So I'm gonna go ahead and go through here and clean up all the weeds and take out all the dead leaves that have fallen. And I just kind of want to do a video on this. This is actually kind of more for my benefit, I guess, because this is something that I've been working on for a little while, and I really like it, and I want to watch how it develops. So, or be able to go back and see how it's developed and where it's came from, and all that stuff. So, last year wintertime was it was a very bad year for me with my trees. I've had a couple of really not good years, but I'm moving some stuff around. This is a large pot, so I don't want to bump into everything. But anyway, last year I had a few trees die from the cold because it got too cold in the greenhouse. So this was one of the plantings that I did lose a couple of trees. The tree that was on this rock died, the tree that was here died, and the tree that was here died. These two trees were from the previous year. So basically I've got a ton of Ficus benjaminas because every one of them that I cut a branch off, I seem to keep the branch because I just really love them. So anyway, I had a couple of trees that I could just replace it with pretty easily. So this one had some longer roots, so I just put it over this rock right here. And actually under the moss right here, this is a rock as well. All the way from here to here is a rock. So this rock was actually outside at my pastor's sister's house. She had a fish tank, and it was in the fish tank at one time, and she took the fish tank down, and it had been years, so it had started growing moss on it. So I helped it along and put a little bit more moss on it and took care of it. So it's got a lot of moss on it now. So eventually I'm really hoping that this rock here will take suit as well. I've got some sphagnum moss on the side here to promote the root growth, and this tree obviously has got roots down into the soil now, so that's not necessary to propagate the roots, but I'm going to use this sphagnum moss to put some of the other moss on it, and hopefully that moss will grow across the rock and kind of just take over the rock with this kind of moss. So also another thing I want to do is go back through and cut off the large cuts that I did. I cut this way back a couple of months ago. I'm going to go ahead and go through here, and I'm going to pick all these weeds out. And I think I'm just going to speed this up. So let's go. Alright everybody, so I wanted to show you something really quick. This right here is a label that I made for this planting. It is a piece of aluminum. I used a aluminum can and I used some stamps and I wrote Ficus benjamina in this aluminum. And I got that idea from Matt over at Bonsai, Bobcat Bonsai. He I think he did either a short or a YouTube video on how to do that. So I thought that was a brilliant idea. So I told him I was going to steal that idea and put it on my trees, and he said that would be great. And then I told him that I would give him a shout out for that. So there you are, brother. I'm going to start using those, but I'm going to make labels for all my trees. So when I'm doing, I got the hiccups. So that when I'm doing a garden tour, I can look at that instead of being like, well, it's a tree, because I know I've done that a few times. So anyway, I just want to give you a shout out, Matt. Thanks for that. Thanks for that idea. And all right, let's get back to work. Alright everybody, so I think that I've pretty much gotten all the weeds that I can get. They're the really tiny ones. And you might have been asking yourself, why are you so worried about getting every single weed out of here? Well, the weeds that are in here, from what my research has found, is it's called a gunpowder weed, and I don't know why they call it that. I haven't done that much research on it, but anyway, they seed and spread very easily and very as a very, very young plant. So, I mean, even a plant. Let me just grab this one. Even a plant that big, I can't even see it on my screen on this side, but even a plant that big, just a little bit bigger than that, is going to seed and spread. So, as you can see, it took me quite a while to get all these weeds off of here. So yeah, that's why I was trying to pick every single one out of here, because I want to get rid of them. So one way that I've found these weeds is with the moss, actually. And I went out and grabbed some stuff off of some other trees so that it would potentially not have any weeds in it. I got a couple of really cool pieces I'm going to put on here because I want the ground to have moss on it as well. So I'm going to be putting some more moss on here. I'm just going to be placing it in various spots so that it can spread across the ground here. I kind of want the shorter type of moss on the ground. As you can see, this moss up in here is taller. It's a larger type of moss that grows really long. It grows really long. And then I've got some over on the side here that is the shorter type. And I fanned this before because these are where you get the spores for the moss. So if you go across this and fan it out, it knocks it all out of those, and then you get moss to spread. So that's why I was doing that. And then so I'm going to try and work this moss out because I don't think that I want the really tall moss on here. I kind of want it to be shorter so that it has a better scale to what I'm doing here. So I'm going to go ahead and place some more moss on here. And as you can see, this has got some weeds in it. So and this is kind of freshly collected moss. It's not recent. Trying to think, a couple of weeks. So the weeds that are in it have started to die off. And this was actually really dry yesterday. So I started this video yesterday and I had to go do something. So I'm back to working on it today. So I had it in some sand and it was dried out. I hadn't watered it for a little while. But as you can see, I sprayed it down with some mist last night and it plumped right back up. So moss is actually very resilient, and so you can propagate it and cultivate it from collecting it on the ground and then put it. I always put it in some sand because it's easier to keep the sand moist and it's easier to take off of the sand when you get ready to use it. So that's why I use sand. And then, as you can see, these are something different. Those are special. I'm going to plant these in the planting here because they're actually a vining flower, but they don't get big. It's about as big as they get, and it puts off this really cool purple flower. So I'm going to put that in here. So anyway, I got some more moss. I'm going to put that out. And I don't know if you can tell, but the soil right here is actually higher than the soil over here. And that's because these trees are starting to push the soil up with their roots. So that's actually a really good sign that these trees are well established here. And I'll have to go through and do a cleanup here pretty soon. Kind of like a repot, but it's, I don't know, we'll just call it a repot. It's a little bit different than a typical bonsai repot where you pull the whole thing out. I'm gonna I'm gonna probably have some some struggles with this because this rock is huge. I mean, you can see that this whole thing is a rock, and that's really heavy. So this tree here, this little guy right here, and this tree have roots going into this rock, and then this rock is separate. So I'm gonna have to take all of this off carefully separately so that I can redo the do some root pruning on these two trees, and then put some new soil over there and put this back in. So that's not going to happen today. So this is actually some moss that I got off of a different tree, and as you can see, it has those weeds in it already. So I'm going to try and pull all of them out of it. Hopefully this doesn't cause them to spread more, but I mean, you can tell I've still got some in here. So this is going to be a long process. I just have to catch them. I just have to catch the weeds early enough that they don't spread. So I'm going to put this in the back part here. It's a different kind of moss. It's a little bit taller, but I want the whole ground out here to be covered with moss. So I'm going to just work that in right there. I think it's really pretty. It's got such a cool color to it. And then I'm going to use this piece here. I'm going to kind of separate it a little bit. Take the grass out of it. I'm going to put it in the moss that's connected to the rock here, because I want to work in some more moss into this rock. I don't want to go too crazy because I don't want the moss to start climbing the tree, but I want to have enough on here that it'll start spreading across the rock. But I also like the shape of the rock, so I don't want to completely get rid of the shape of the rock by covering it up. But I mean, it's kind of a balance of enough and too much. So over the years, we'll work on that balance and see if we can figure it out. But this moss should start growing to this rock pretty easily, though. So I think I might put this piece up front here, cover that section out. Got another small piece here. Take some off the edge of this. Put it up in here. And the cool thing about moss, it spreads. So you can kind of put a piece here and a piece there, and it'll do its thing and spread out and cover up the ground really well. And I found that I've got a really cool I just pulled it off, a fern right here, which I'm going to keep this fern on the plant. I think I'm going to keep it right in this hole here, and I'm going to put a small amount of moss over that hole, kind of give it something to grow into. There we go. That looks good. I got a couple more pieces of moss here. Spread these out just across the bottom here. Put one over here. Alright, so I think I got the moss all taken care of for now. Most of the weeds are pulled. So obviously the next part is to take care of the trees. So I'm going to trim this tree up. It looks like it's doing pretty well, but there's a couple of spots that aren't doing so good. So I'm going to pull those leaves off. And you can just use a pair of tweezers to pull these leaves off. It's the tree of 1,000 stars. They call it a snow rose, or the scientific name is Sarissa japonica, or japonica, however you would pronounce that part of it. But the spelling of it is japonica. So then I'm going to cut this long branch off over here. I don't need that growing all crazy up there. And I'm going to shorten some of these longer branches or the longer trunks on here. These trees, they grow really weird. I've noticed that if I grow them in a bonsai pot and I grow them really slowly, they actually look more like a tree. If you put it in a large pot to grow it out quicker, like some trees you can do that. This one, it just grows a really, really, really long stem, and then it's got a couple of leaves here and a couple of leaves there. It's actually kind of like the, I think this is a Japanese privet. I think that's what I said it was. I'll have to look back. Trying to remember. I know it's a privet. And these kind of do the same thing. They'll grow a really long shoot, and they'll have leaves across it, but they won't branch until you trim it back. So I'm going to trim this one back way down here because I want it to have branches. So this was actually a cutting that I just stuck in the dirt, and it started growing roots. And this as well, and this little guy here as well. So they grow from cutting really well, which is one of the reasons why I like the Cerissus so much. And these guys, I'm just getting into these. I found one in my yard, so I dug it up thinking it was a really cool tree, not knowing what it was, and then eventually just, looked it up and found out what it was. So I don't know a lot about them yet, but they seem to grow pretty well, and you can dig them up and stick them in some sand and just let them grow again, and they do pretty well. They do pretty well as a Yamadori. So. And we can get into that some more on a different video when I go over that tree, because I like I said, I don't know much about it yet. So once I do, then I'll do a video, care video, and a couple of how-to videos on those. I think they're really cool trees. They grow really small leaves, so I think they're a pretty good candidate for bonsai. And I don't know if I've seen a whole lot of YouTube videos on them, so it'll be fun to do some research on that. So I'm just trimming off all of the I don't know what they're called, where the spores are at, the flowers, I guess you would call them, on the moss here, to get it back to shape. Because once they turn brown, that's when they release all the spores, and then they just die off. So cutting them back to where it looks green again is just what I'm doing here. I'm gonna cut the other moss a little bit shorter here too, because it's not exactly the profile of the rock. It's pretty thick. So I want to kind of follow the profile of the rock again. Well, thick. It's not. I guess it's not really thick. It's really fluffy. When you cut it back, it kind of looks like it's grass. Could probably just put it on the bottom here and see if it'll grow, but I don't know if I want the thicker stuff growing on the bottom, so I won't do that. All right, use the brush to get all the trimmings out of here. The next thing that I'm going to do here is I am going to trim back all the trees, show you guys how to, well, I've shown you guys how to maintain these trees. The Ficus benjaminas, But I've got quite a few new subscribers, so I think I'll just go through and do a quick. This is how to on these trees here. So this is actually a really good example of a lot of times I'll tell you take the leaf off the base of each new branch. Right? I don't know if you've ever heard that, but that's how I take care of these. You get a branch right here, this branch here, and see how it's got this leaf right at the base of the branch. I'll take these leaves off because those leaves are ginormous and these leaves are small, right? So I'll go through and find all of the leaves at the base of the branches, and I'll take that off. And you don't have to get it right up against the branch. You can cut it right at the base of the leaf or in the middle, wherever you want to cut it, and that'll eventually just fall off. So we don't have to get too close and cut the new branch off. Just believe me, I've done that more than I want to admit. We don't want to do that. We want to take off just the leaf and not the new branch, because that new branch may or may not grow back at a later date. I'm also going to be going through and taking off some of the branches that are going into other branches, or like this one, it's really low on the tree. I think I might just take that one off, because if you look down here, this branch is right at the base of this branch or trunk. So if I do this a double trunk, or if I make that a branch, it's right at the base of it, and that'll make a swollen spot right there. So I don't want to do that. So then I've got a new tree right there. Just cutting off all these leaves and getting it to where they have more space for all the new growth to grow. Because opening up space for your tree to grow is a really good thing with bonsai. You want your trees to have breathing room and places for the new branches to grow too, because they will keep growing. They won't stop growing. But the thing is, if you have stuff in front of a branch that's blocking the direction that you want it to go, it'll go in a different direction. So, like if I have the leaf under here too long, this branch will grow like upwards, and if I want it to grow out, then I take that leaf off and it'll grow out. So like this branch right here, this branch I didn't cut it off, and this branch is like growing upwards. If I'd have cut that off, it might have grown more outwards, which this one is not that big a deal. But if you want your branch to go in a certain direction, then you take those leaves off sooner, and it creates space. And also, by taking off the larger leaves, you give more light to the tree, and then you can have backbudding on the tree as well. These the Ficus benjamina backbuds really well. They do really well with that. So this tree here is really small, so I'm just gonna let this one keep going. I'm gonna let it run up into this, probably about this high. I might let this one get higher because it's up on the rock, and put it with this, and so that we can have different height on our trees. But that's something that I'll figure out as it grows. All right, I'm gonna come over here, check this tree. So another thing, when you're cutting off the leaves, if it's got just this tiny little, let me bring you up in here. If it's got just this tiny little shoot coming off of it, I don't usually take them off at that point, because that can break off really easy, and this actually protects it and brings water and nutrients to that branch. So leaving that on until it gets some size to it is the way I like to grow them out. And I've kind of neglected this for a while because it was recovering from freshly being put on here, letting the roots establish, letting a couple of trees establish. So I just kind of let it go. That's why I've got all this work to do here. Plus, as you take the larger leaves off, the newer leaves are going to be smaller. And so as you get more and more branches, your leaves get smaller and smaller. This is a Ficus benjamina, and I think it's the variety that has the largest leaves out of all the benjaminas. So you have to reduce the size of the leaves by creating more branches. There are a couple of varieties that have small leaves from the beginning. The Ficus benjamina too little is one that grows small leaves, and it just grows small leaves. They don't get large. So that's kind of a nice one to do as a bonsai. It's a lot harder to find. I do have one. I got it at a bonsai nursery. It's not something that you can really get at just a normal plant nursery. I've never seen one at a normal plant nursery. I'm not going to say you can't, but I'm going to say it's a lot more difficult. Unless they sell bonsai trees, you're probably not going to find them you probably won't find them at a different garden center that doesn't sell bonsai trees. All right, so now I'm going to go through and clip off all of the ends that I didn't cut off when I was trimming this back, and just kind of clean it up. And then this will be a done deal for now. And this isn't that big a deal, cutting all these back. It just makes it look better. And like I was saying with the leaves against the branch, if you cut the top off and you want this to grow upwards as the new leader, you want to cut this kind of close to this. But if you're going to cut it close, you want this branch to be large enough to cut it close to it, to where you know where that branch is going to be. Because if you cut it too close to a tiny branch, you're going to cut it and that little branch will die back. So like up here, that's close enough. It's kind of flush with it, but it's not at an angle. So if you're going to cut it at an angle with the branch, that branch has to be a little bit more substantial. And then I would cut it with the branch. I wouldn't cut it along with the branch like that. Cut it against the branch like that. Because if you cut it along with the branch, I've cut them off. You might be better at trimming than I am. So cut your branches at your own risk in that aspect. All right, now this branch way up here, this branch way up here looks like it is dyed back all the way to here. So I'm just going to cut that whole thing off. If it hasn't dyed back, no big deal. This will grow. More branches will grow. These trees grow pretty quick and pretty easy, so don't be afraid of trimming back your trees. When I first got started in bonsai, I was watching Nigel Saunders at the Bonsai Zone. He was trimming back this tree, and he does this a lot, so just go check out his channel. But he was chopping it way back, and I'm like, man, you're cutting off all the branches. You're cutting off all the branches. What are you doing with this tree, you know? And then the next time he puts it, does a video on that tree, it's like amazing. I mean, all the branches have filled out, and it's like, he's like, okay, so this has grown really well, and now I've got to cut it back again. And I'm like, man, I'm like very rarely cutting my trees back, and they don't look as good as his. So I started chopping mine back farther, and it works. It really works. So don't be afraid to trim your trees back. I think on some trees, you've got to be careful of how far back you cut them because of their growth habits. So know your tree, but yeah, don't be afraid to make big cuts. So I'm going to take the top of this one off and let this be the leader instead of this leaf, because this will probably not grow a branch here, because you guys are looking way up there. Let me get you closer here. This will probably not grow a branch here because I cut it too close. So that's why I was talking about cutting too close. You'll damage the new bud. So this is a branch, so there's no bud at the base of this branch anymore. So I can cut this back to here, and now this will be the leader of that tree, or the top of this tree, and then I can do that and make it look nicer. All right, you guys. I think that's gonna do it for this tree, or this planting, forest, whatever you want to call it. I think it's looking really good. I'm loving it. So all of these giant leaves over here, I'm leaving those summertime or early spring into summer, when the tree's putting on a lot of growth. You can go and completely defoliate these trees, and then all of the new buds or branches will start emerging really rapidly, and that'll reduce the leaf size quicker. Wintertime, you don't want to do that. These trees are still growing. Obviously, all of these are, the lighter leaves are new growth, so it is still growing, but it's not putting on a lot of growth. And if you take off the older solar panels, it's going to set the tree way back. So that's another reason, now that I'm thinking about it, that's another reason why I do leave them on until it's got a couple of leaves, because this is a solar panel giving to the tree, because it's a hardened off and it's an older leaf. So this is giving to the tree, and these lighter colored ones, as they're still light, they're taking energy from the tree. They're not giving energy to the tree yet. So I mean, maybe a little bit, I don't want to split hairs, but they're not giving like this one is. This one's actually giving all of its energy. It's not taking any energy. This one's taking energy as it's giving energy, so it's taking more energy than it's giving, if that makes sense. So you don't want to take off all the energy giving leaves if it's not got enough energy to come back from that. So anyway, that's defoliation. Yeah. I don't even know what I'm saying now. Okay, so I think I'll be done with this tree before I cut too much off and do too much to it. So I really like this planting. It's looking good. It's looking really good. I'm actually kind of wondering right this minute, do I want to or do I not want to? This branch is kind of bothering me because it's going right up into all of this. I think I'm going to take that off. I'm going to take this big branch off. So I'm going to bring you guys in so you can see what I'm talking about. This branch here, it's all of this over here, and I think it's kind of taking away from the rest of the tree. So I'm going to go in here and lop that off. And I think I'm going to leave that like that. I think I'm going to leave it like this, with kind of where you can tell it was cut off. Yeah, that's much better. Because this now looks like a tree instead of another tree being in front of that tree. But this one I'm not putting on the planting. I'll root that in some sand and have another tree. All right, everybody. So something that I haven't been mentioning that I should be mentioning on my channel is I have a link in my description to an Amazon wish list. If you guys go over to that and purchase stuff on Amazon, that actually helps my channel out. So if you could do that, that would be super awesome. That would help me out. That would help my channel out, put out more content and get cooler stuff to put out. So so there's that, and thank you everybody for the support and the new subscribers. Really appreciate y'all, and I'll see you on the next one.